Hey friends, welcome back to another video. My name's Emma Lefebvre, and today we're going to be painting some detailed tulips. So let's jump right in and start. Okay, so before we get into painting our tulips, I'm going to show you quickly how to sketch them out. This is my original, so it might not look exactly the same, but I'm going to show you the gist. This is the Cosmo from the other video. And I'm just drawing on some scrap paper to show you. I'm using my Micron Pigma Micron pen, size 08. And I'm only using a pen just so you guys can see better. But I would definitely use a pencil on your watercolor paper before. Do not use a pen. And try and draw as lightly as possible so you don't have really dark lines. Okay, so I'm going to try my best to recreate this. So the first thing we're going to do is you are going to draw kind of like a stretched out C, just like a curve. You're going to bring this like bulb coming up like so. Okay, and it doesn't have to be perfect. This one is going to come a little lip down. It's going to come out a little bit fatter and come back in. Okay, and then this one is going to kind of have like a 2 bump lip right there. Okay, and then you're going to do another 2 lipped bump right there. And that's the basic shape. Let's do another one. This one is going to be on more of an angle, so you can turn your paper if you feel better about that, or you can just draw it on an angle. This one's going to be a bit more open. So I'm going to start off by doing kind of like a U shape, like so. I'm going to bring it up, and then this is going to have a petal that's going to come down and in, and then back out. This one's going to come the same, down and in, and back out, like so. And then you're just going to have that kind of center. I would definitely make this a bit bigger, I think. Maybe I should have done this in pencil. It's okay. I would typically do this in a pencil before a marker. Okay, but that's the basic shape of it. Okay, and then you're just going to draw your stems. They're quite thick. Have this one come in. And then our tulips have long leaves. So I'm going to start up here. And I'm going to come curve down, curve out, curve back in. I'm going to come down this way, go behind the tulip. Try and follow it with your eyes before you hit that paper. And that's going to cut the stem off right here. It's going to come right in front of the stem, like that. And then we're going to do another one this way. Tulips are probably some of the easiest flowers to draw. Come back, cut right in front of the stem here, so you can just finish off the stems there. And then we're going to have one behind, like so, cutting off. And that will go behind there. And that's it. That's how you draw the tulips. And then the last video was how you draw the cosmos. Super simple. So once you have this sketched out onto your watercolor paper with a pencil, we can get started. Okay, so today I am going to show you how to paint a detailed tulip. So my detailed flowers are quite different than my loose flowers. They take a bit more time and patience, but they're also a lot of fun and relaxing to do. So the first thing you want to do is draw out your flower. So I drew out 2 tulips here together. So we do detail flowers in steps. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to work on the flowers. And I'm going to be doing some purple tulips. So I already have pretty dirty purple water here. And I'm going to be mixing dioxazine purple with some permanent rose to get this kind of like mauve-ish purple. Okay, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the whole tulip flower part in this light wash. So not too saturated of the purple. So that's why I keep adding more water to my brush of this tulip. I don't remember what I was saying, sorry. Okay, so I'm just going to go over with the light wash of the purple. Okay, and they're 2 different kind of shapes. This one's a bit more open, the other one's a bit more closed. You can do whatever's easiest to you. And the one thing about doing detailed flowers is that you have to allow drying time because we work on one petal at a time. So right now I am adding the base layer, and then we're going to go into one petal at a time and sharpen them up and do some detail work. So this is step 1. All right. And you're going to let that dry and then we'll come right back. Okay, now that that's dry, we can move on to step 2. And I forgot to mention, I'm painting on Arch's watercolor paper today, cold pressed. I'm using my Winsor Newton Professional watercolors and my Emma Lefebvre Craftimo brush in a size 6 round. I will be grabbing my size 2 later for a little bit of detail. All right, so now we're going to go back into our purple. I'm just gonna add a bit more here, a bit more of that pink to mix it. And we are going to do the center petals. So here. So the first thing I want to do is I want to wet up that center petal. So this one is just a small little peak coming out. Like so. And I want to make sure it's not too, I'm going to zoom in for you. I want to make sure it's not too wet, like it's not pooling, because I'm going to add some darker color in there. And if it's pooling, it's not going to explode the way you want it. So I'm just going to take up some of that wetness. Make sure it's all the same amount of wetness, but there's no like little pools there. I'm going to go back in with some darker color and tap down there like so, and kind of let it bleed a bit like that. Okay. Then we're going to do the same thing with this bigger center one. I'm going to go over it with some water. Has a little bit of a tint of purple to it, which is fine. But we're just making it wet first to start. Again, make sure it's not pooling in any areas. Then again, go back into your darker color. I'm going to start tapping at the bottom and bring up this darker color around the sides, the center, and the side over here a bit, like so. And then I might even add a bit more darkness to it, right down here. Like that. And now it's looking a little bit wonky. So I'm going to wash off my brush, dab it on my paper towel to dry, and then I'm just going to kind of blend it out, just make it a little bit softer. And then I'm going to continue just dabbing my brush on my paper towel just to blend it out a bit. Make sure there's no water on your paper towel, or sorry, make sure there's no water on your brush, because if there's water on your brush, when you go back in to kind of blend it out, see how I'm just kind of drying my brush off, it's going to add water to that area, and water actually repels the color. So you're going to get kind of like a white lightest splotch there, and you don't really want that. So just make sure it's dry when you go back in to blend. Okay. And then let me just fix this one a little bit. And then we wait for this one to dry. Okay, now that step 2 is done, we are going to do the same kind of thing, but with the left petals. So again, I'm going back in with water. Okay, it has a little bit of a tint of purple to it, which is fine. And I'm just going to cover this petal with water. Again, make sure it's not pooling anywhere. I'm going to keep saying it. Just make sure it's the same amount of wetness over the whole thing. Again, go back in with your darker color. I'm going to go around the side a little bit, the bottom, and bring it up a little, and just start to kind of bring it up just a bit, like that. Okay, I'm going to try and get more color, make it even darker down here at the bottom. Like so. And I'm going to wash off my brush, and I want to blend it out just a little bit, but actually first I want to add a little bit of pink. I'm going to take a little bit of pink that's on my palette, my permanent rose, and I'm just going to tap the top. Very little water, very little pigment on my brush. Oops. Just try to smooth it out a bit. Like that. So we have a bit of pink at the top, and then we have more purple at the bottom, and it's kind of lighter here. So I just want to blend it out just a little bit so it looks a bit better. So again, washing and drying off my brush, and I'm just going to move it around to kind of blend it together so it's not like such a harsh line. You want a nice soft gradient. Keep drying your brush. If it feels like there's too much water, now it bled into the centerpiece, so I'm going to have to fix that after. Like that, but you'd have the tiniest little bit of pink at the top. Like so. Okay, let's do it to this one now. Okay, make sure it's all the same amount of wetness. Go back in with your darker color. Make the bottom the darkest part. Bring it up just a little bit. And I'm dragging it away because when you go towards the lighter part, when you lift up your brush, see how it explodes there? We don't want the explosion of color there. We want it towards the bottom where we want it the darkest. So that's why I keep dragging it away. Okay, wash off my brush. Grab a little bit of our pink here. Tap it at the top. Okay. Again, wash it off. And see how it's a bit of a harsh line there? Dry brush. Blend it together a bit. This is going in the middle a bit, so I'm just gonna fix that. There we go. Like so. Okay, now we have to wait for that to dry, and we'll be right back. Okay, now that that's dry, we're gonna do it to the other petal. Same thing. I'm just gonna mix, actually, no. I'm gonna wet it up first, and I gotta mix up a bit more color. Make sure it's all the same amount of wetness. Grab my dioxazine purple, a bit more permanent rose. And again, start at the bottom, dragging it down towards the base. Wash off my brush a little, grab some of that pink, tap the top a bit. Wash off our brush again, dry it, and blend it out with our dry brush. Just kind of moving it together. Again, keep drying it if it seems a little bit too wet. Like that. Okay, same thing to the other side. Okay. Grab that darker color, drag it down. Need a bit more color here. Wash off my brush, grab my pink, and my tip for you when adding any kind of little bits of color or whatever, just make sure there's not a lot of water on your brush or a lot of paint so you don't get those weird blooms. It's all about water control, so that's why I use a size 6 brush, because it doesn't hold as much water for this, but also it's just easier to control when blending it together. And just try not to have a lot of water on your brush. You'll get the feel of it after a while, but if you're unsure, just dab your brush on your paper towel to make sure. All right. Okay, so now we wait for that to dry. Okay, so now that that's dry, we're gonna take our size 2 round brush or any detailed brush that you have, and we are going to get some darker purple, and we are gonna do some small detailed lines. So I'm gonna start from the bottom, and the detail lines need to go with the curve of the petal. So how you see how this petal is curved like that, you're gonna make sure that you are curving these tiny little lines using really light pressure on the tip of your brush. Maybe that's even a bit too much pigment. And you're just gonna do these little lines, curving with the shape of the petal to the bottom. And then you can even have some coming from the top. There's a little divot here at the top. Like that. And then there's these little tiny lines coming down the side of the petal. Like that. And it's longer in the center and then kind of tapers off towards the side. Okay? Do it on this side too. And then around the side, I'm just doing these like little curved lines. Same for the center here. And it just adds a little bit of detail and texture to the flower. Okay, let's do the same thing on this one. Again, with the curve of the petal. Taking off some pigment on my paper towel at times if I feel like it's too dark. I'm going to curve it down the side here. Go right up the center. Like that, and then the last petal. Like so. Like that. Okay, so now the flower part is done. We're gonna work on the stem. So just make sure there's no wet parts of the actual petal touching the stem while we do this. And for this, I am going to grab some sap green. And the first step of this is to place the sap green all over the, oh my goodness, the leaves and the stems of the flower. And I'm just going to take off some of the pigment on my brush just to make it a little bit of a lighter wash. Just dip it, instead of dipping back in the paint, I just dip it right back into the water. Like I said, make sure that your flower is not wet, because if the flower head is wet and it touches the green stem or the leaf, they'll bleed into each other and it won't look so great. Okay, so now that that's done, we are going to wait for it to completely dry and then we will come right back. Okay, and for our last step, what we're going to do is we're going to darken the leaves, but leave the stems quite light so there's a bit of contrast. So I'm going to take my sap green again, just a bit more of a darker wash. I might even add a little bit of burnt umber just to make it a little bit more of an olivey green. And I'm going to go over my leaf. Like so. And then I'm going to cut right in front here. Of where that stem is and wrap around the front. Like that. What I also might do is grab a little bit of a darker green. So I have this Perline green here. And I might just go a little bit darker, kind of where the tulip is, where it'd be casting a bit of a shadow. Just add a little bit of darkness there. And I think I'm going to wash off my brush, dry it, and I might pull up some of that color. Just to make it a little bit lighter in the center. Okay, then I'm going to do it to this one over here. A little bit of brown, a little bit of sap green. I'm going to darken this leaf now. I'm going to leave a little bit of space right here just so they don't bleed into each other. You can wait for it to dry as well, but I don't want to wait right now. Like so. Grab a little bit of my darker green, tap it in around where it would be casting a shadow here, and then maybe a little bit here it would be casting a shadow too. I get a bit more color in my brush. Like so. Just grabbing some of that darker color, and I'm just going to kind of drag it up a bit. Like so. Okay, and then the last leaf behind here, doing the same thing. Green, a little bit of brown, that's too much brown, a bit more green. And we're going to come up behind. I'm actually going to come up behind here, like so. Again, a little bit of that darker green can go right in here. So it casts a bit of a shadow, and then right around here. And it looks a little weird, so I'm just gonna wash off my brush, just like we did with the petals, and blend it out. Like that. Again, a bit more darkness right in there. Like so. Okay, and then we're gonna let that dry, and then we'll just do a little bit more to the stems and a little bit more detail, and then we'll be done. Okay, now that that's dry, I'm gonna take a little bit of cadmium yellow, and I'm just gonna add it to my green to make a lighter color, and I'm just gonna go along the stem to make it this lighter green color, just like that, because it was a little bit too pale. Like that. And then I'm going to take my smaller detail brush again, like that. I'm going to take my darker green, mix it with a bit of the sap green so it doesn't have to be too dark. And we can just do some detailed lines like we did here. Just going up from the base. Like that. Up from the base of this one. And then lastly, the one from the middle here. Just a couple of detailed lines, like so. I feel like this could have a bit more. Like that. And there you go. There is your detailed tulips. Thank you guys so much for watching my video. I really hope you liked it and I hope you learned something. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and follow me on Instagram for even more. Have a great day, guys. Bye.